And was there a body located there?
Yes, there was.
Now, what's the typical role of a deputy coroner in responding to the location of a person who had been deceased under circumstances such as this?
To investigate the death and determine manner and cause of death.
Did you, as part of your role as well, to make a pronunciation of death?
Yes, it is.
And did you do that in this case?
I did.
And did you pronounce the person deceased?
I did.
Were you able to identify who the deceased was?
Michael Funk.
And I'm showing you what's been marked as exhibit number 19. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
It's a driver's license photo of Michael Funk.
And was that in part used to identify the deceased?
Yes, it was.
Do you recall approximately what time you pronounced Mr. Funk dead at?
At 13:25.
Which would be 1:25 p.m., correct? Now, what happened after you made the pronunciation of death?
He was examined, and then I waited for DCI agents to come.
Did you conduct a physical examination of his body?
Briefly in the clinic, yes.
And did you observe any signs of trauma?
Yes, he had multiple gunshot wounds.
Now I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 1. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
That's a photograph of Mr. Funk.
And does that photograph depict him as you observed him at Theta Clark?
Yes.
And where did you observe multiple gunshot wounds? On his body?
I was
Yes.
aware on the body.
Yes.
On his left side, back, abdomen, and one of his legs.
And does that exhibit appear to be a complete and accurate photograph of Mr. Funk as you observed him that morning?
Yes.
And I just asked that it be taken down now from the screen. Now, after that initial observation, what did you do next, if anything, in regard to your role as a deputy coroner with the body of Mr. Funk?
We transferred him down from the clinic to the morgue at Theta Clark. At that point, he was examined more thoroughly. His hands were bagged and sealed with tape. We had radiology come in and take x-rays.
What was the purpose of x-raying the corpse?
To be able to see the projectiles within the body.
Did you have an opportunity to observe those x-rays?
I did not.
So what happened next?
After all of that was done, he was photographed, then he was placed in a body bag, and that body bag was had identification tag and a seal placed on it.
I'm showing you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 20. Can you identify what that is, what that exhibit is?
That is a certified death certificate for Michael Funk.
And does that certified death certificate state a cause of death?
It does, multiple gunshot wounds, or multiple gunshots.
And what was the date of the cause of, the date of death?
It would be on December 5th.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Flatoff.
Did DCI show you any photos of Michael Funk on scene?
No, he did not.
Did you observe any gunshots to Mr. Funk, front side of his body?
Yes.
Where were they located?
I believe on the left side. There was one on the front portion of his leg. I do not know if they're exit or entrance ones.
Do you know the number of, that would cover the side, so it's more on the side of his body, not directly in front of him?
I believe more on the left side.
And do you know how many, the number of gunshots that were in Michael Funk's back?
I do not.
Do you know if the amount of how many gunshot wounds he had in total to his body?
I do not.
I have no further questions.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Okay, ma'am, you may step down.
state moves exhibits 19, 20, and 2 into evidence.
Any objections, Mr. Flatoff?
No, Your Honor.
All right, they'll be received. Next witness, Mr. Seaman.
The state calls Michael Peterson. That's correct, Your Honor. Statement move exhibit 1 into evidence.
All right, 1 will be received.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in the matter now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may have a seat.
Good morning, sir. Please state your name and spell the last for the record.
Michael Peterson. What you want, what else did you want?
Would you just spell the last name for the record, sir?
Petersen.
And Mr. Peterson, are you retired at this point in life?
Yes, I am.
And what are you retired from?
Worked at the Nina Foundry for 25 years. Then I became a salvager.
Now, do you also go by the name Old Mike?
I've been called that.
No offense taken, but just want to clarify if that comes out later.
Yes, many of my friends call me that.
I'll call you Mr. Peterson if that's all right.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
I won't call you Old Mike. Mr. Peterson, are you familiar with the Eagle Nation Cycles business?
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with that business?
Well, I live right behind their shop, and I've been at my house I've owned that for 50 years now, so I've been there quite a while, and when they moved into that building and opened their shop, got to shoot the bull with them a little bit. And my garage, I'm out there quite a bit working, and it faces an alley, which the back of their building faces an alley. So I got to talking to them and off and on. And so they come every Saturday morning, just about every Saturday, I'd go over and have coffee with them, and sometimes breakfast. It was open pretty much to anybody that wanted to stop and have coffee or breakfast.
And did you know a person named Michael Funk?
Yes, very well.
And how long would you say you know Michael Funk?
Well, as long as he was there at that time, probably close to 15 years.
Is it fair to say that you were friends?
Yes,
Now, I'm going to direct your attention to December 5th, 2015. Do you recall that day, sir?
certainly do.
And did you go to Eagle Nation Cycles on that morning?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall approximately what time you went there?
It had been around 9 o'clock.
And did you go there for basically the same reason, to have coffee and shoot the bull? as you
Yes.
say? Do you recall which door you used to enter Eagle
The
Nation?
back door.
That'd be the back alley door?
The back alley door, because that faces my garage.
And what did you observe upon entering Eagle Nation that morning?
Ryan Morrison was working on a motorcycle towards the back door, back service door. And I walked in, walked by him, and so I remember saying, good morning, Rhino. And I didn't catch it at the time, but he kind of mumbled something, and I later found out it was get the hell out of here. But I didn't understand what he said. I just thought maybe he was having a bad day, because it wasn't like him not to say good morning back to me. So I kept walking, and ML was sitting down, and there was a fellow behind him standing. And I walked,
I'm sorry to stop you there, but ML, is that Michael Funk?
yes,
And I believe you called Ryan Morrison, Rhino?
Yeah, that's the nickname for him.
So, sorry for interrupting you. Now, you saw Michael Funk sitting and the man standing behind him?
Yes.
So what happened next, sir?
I said, good morning, ML. And he was motioning with his eyes, kind of like that. He didn't say anything.
Could you tell what he was motioning towards?
Not really, because he wasn't moving his head much, but just his eyes like that. And I never experienced anything like that, so when I went over to the shop, so I didn't really, I was they ain't having a good day or something. I'm thinking this. And that was about it. He didn't really say anything to me.
So, did he appear to be not acting himself based on your prior?
Right.
So what happened next?
Then a fellow was standing behind him and he said something to the effect about, should get the hell out of here.
You said you should get the hell out of here, or you were gonna?
He did.
Okay.
The fellow did to me. And I never saw him before, so I didn't know him. And usually everybody was in such good humor when I'd go over there. I thought he was joking around. So I said to him, I'm not ready to leave yet.
And what happened next?
He pulled a gun out from under a Levi jacket I believe he had on him. He says, you think I'm joking? I said, no.
Did he appear serious?
Yeah, serious enough to get my attention.
And so what happened after he drew the gun out and asked if you thought he
I
was
said,
joking?
well, I think it's time for me to leave, and he said, you're not going anywhere now.
And so at that point, did you feel that you were no longer free to leave?
I wasn't gonna start walking out the back door, I know that.
Silly question, but had to
Said,
ask it.
yeah, he said, go by the, or go over to the counter, sit down or something like that.
And so did you go over and
Yeah,
sit down?
yeah, it was only a matter of a few feet away, so. Basically, that was the end of my conversation. I was over by the counter and
How did ML or Michael Funk look? How did his
he
facial?
was scared, there was no doubt about it.
So what happened after you went and took a seat?
Well, I remember the telephone rang a few times, and ML did answer it. Yeah, it must have been somebody that wanted work done or whatever, from what I could pick up. And he was trying to put him off until Monday or so of the next week.
It's basically
Didn't
indicating,
want him to come down there at that time, the way, that's what I took.
now what was Ryan Morrison doing at the time, could you see?
He was working on the motorcycle off and on, and he did move over closer to where I was. I think he got a drink out of the refrigerator. So he was more over in my area, but basically he was working on the bike, the motorcycle.
Now, was the man with the gun saying anything at this point?
Not a lot that I can remember.
Do you recall him saying
I
anything?
remember
Ryan?
the phone would ring. He was on the phone at least there one time. I believe he was talking to the police.
Now, did you observe if this man had any other weapons other than a gun?
Yeah, one time he had a couple of hunting knives.
Did he,
He made a comment to ML, You think these are sharp enough to cut somebody's arms off? And ML, he just kind of stuttered and then he said, yeah, or some, you know, he agreed. And then mentioned that he was scared.
Now, at some point, did the rear door open at Eagle Nation?
Yes.
And what happened when the back door opened?
Well, the back door opened, and at that time I was standing by the counter. I must get up, you know, move my legs a little. And back door opened up, and I heard, I remember seeing a shield, and get on the floor, drop your gun.
That's what the people behind the shield were
That's
yelling?
what the cops said when they come through the door.
So what happened after the cops yelled, drop your gun, get on the floor?
I was hitting the floor.
And what do you recall happening next after you hit the floor?
Well, I was laying flat on the floor and shooting. They were within not even seconds. Shooting started. I was laying on the floor. Evidently one of the bullets hit a fire extinguisher, and that was about it. The room filled up with smoke, and I was laying on the floor kind of underneath one of these tables where you raise a motorcycle up on.
Could you tell?
I couldn't see much at all, I couldn't see anything when that fire extinguisher exploded.
Could you tell who appeared to fire first?
I would say the defendant. Could hear the shooting. It was instantly.
So what happened? Now, I believe you testified in the fire extinguisher was hit at some point, correct?
Correct.
And what do you recall happening next after the fire extinguisher was hit?
Well, at that time, I was laying on the floor, and the whole room was filled with that dust or whatever they put into them. And I've got COPD pretty bad, and so, and I didn't have my inhaler with me, which that didn't help at all. So I was having a pretty hard time breathing, and I remember the defendant telling ML to close the back door.
So at this point in time, had the police retreated out of the building?
I could not see him.
Okay.
The only thing I could see is when they came in, they left the back door open, that service door, because there's an overhead door back there too, but that was not open. When the cops come in, I guess a few of them fell down the steps. I couldn't see that because I was laying on the floor at that time. And I could see a little light where the door was open.
So what happened after?
Mel was told to go close the door.
And the defendant told him that?
Told him to go close the door, and if you try to bolt, then I'll shoot you. Something to that effect.
He said that to Michael Funk?
Yes.
So what happened next?
I saw a shadow over by that door, and that was it. That was the last I saw.
Did you hear any more gunfire at that point?
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
And who was shooting the gun at that point?
The defendant.
Now, did you again hear more shooting coming from outside then?
Yes, I did. There was a few seconds, it wasn't long afterwards. I was still, of course, laying on the floor. Couldn't really see anything, the dust hadn't settled yet.
So after you heard that second round of shooting then, or the shooting coming from outside, what happened next?
Then I heard shooting from the outside.
And so then after you heard,
And then that was it. That was all.
so now you're laying on the floor, you
And I'm laying on the floor, and I believe, I'm not sure because I couldn't see anything, but I think the defendant was on the phone with the police. And he made some comment to the effect that, well, there is no hostages in here. And that's when Ryan Morrison, when he said something about, well, you know, he was still in there. And I says, well, I'm in here too. And, because it was hard to see yet. And he was on the floor, I was on the floor.
Ryan Morrison
and
was on the
he-
floor with you?
Pardon?
You said he was on the floor, you were.
I could not see him, I didn't know he was on the floor at that time, because I couldn't see anything.
So what happened then after you said, well, I'm still in there?
The defendant said, we'll get the F out of here.
Get the fuck out of here?
But basically,
You can say it.
and in those words, pretty much. So, Ryan said, can I go over and help Mike up? Because I'd got, excuse me, I've had surgery on my legs, too, they're plugged up with that plaque, so I got kind of a hard time getting around at times. And so he come over to help me up, and we walked out the back door, and
Do you see the man in court here today who had the gun and ordered you to sit down?
yes, sitting over the table there.
The person seated, two persons to my left is the one you referred to as the defendant?
Yes,
Your Honor, as the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant. Thank you, Mr. Peterson, no further questions.
Oh, wait, Mr. Peterson, Mr. Flatoff may have some questions for you.
Art?
There's some more questions Mr.
Oh,
Flatoff
okay,
may have
yeah.
for you.
Mr. Peterson, did you see any of the video of this case that was released by the Department of Justice?
I did see a little bit of it, they played some over to the shop, at the shop, a week or so after it happened, but very, very little of the tape. Evidently, I didn't show up too much, I wasn't on film inside of the shop. The only tape that I remember seeing was out in the alley, the ML. And very little of that.
Do you remind me specifically, ever yelling in the garage, I'm gonna kill all of you?
No, I do not. Now, did you say when I was in the garage,
Yes.
in my garage?
No, in the garage, at Eagle Nation. You ever recall me yelling that if Vance don't get here in 5 minutes, I'm gonna start killing all you?
I've heard that comment, but I do not distinctly remember you saying that day.
Do you remember me ever yelling that if Vance ain't here in 1 minute, I'm gonna start killing all of you?
No, I do not remember that.
Do you ever remember me screaming specifically, that I'm going to kill Vance Dalton and his wife and kids?
No, not specifically, I do not.
This might go a little off track here, but once you had exited the building and you were taken in, Well, once you exited the building, did you see Michael Funk outside in the alley?
No, I did not.
When the police came in the building, do you know, was I on the phone with the police when the police came in the building?
I cannot remember distinctly either way. I know you were on the phone at different times. Whether you were on the phone specifically when they came through the door, I cannot remember.
Do you recall a point in time where I had went up front with Michael Funk?
Yes,
Were you able to leave the garage at that time?
I don't think I had been able to move that quick, no.
Okay. You had testified.
If I thought I could have got out the door, believe me, I would have.
Thank you. You had testified, just now that I had shot first when the police came in?
Yes,
In your statement, did you tell the police this?
the only statement I gave to the police was over two and a half years ago. And I have not reread that statement.
Is there any reason that you can think of that your answer would be different from now to what is either in your written statement or your video statement?
I guess I'm gonna object, Your Honor, because he's not asking him if there's a point of impeachment, but now we're talking about questioning on statements again, your statements and not testimony.
Well, I'll overrule the objection, maybe that's where Mr. Flatoff is going.
What was the direct question again?
Did you talk to the police shortly after this happened?
After it happened, I was handcuffed when I come out of the building, put in the back of a squad car, and sat in there for about 3 hours.
Did the police question you while you were in that squad car?
No,
How soon after did they question you at the police station?
well, I sat in the squad car for about 3 hours, and they finally took me down to the police station. And I probably waited half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And then somebody interviewed me. So it was about 4 hours after I exited the building,
Was it the same day?
the same day.
When things would have been fresher in your mind back then?
Objection, lack of foundation.
I'll overrule it.
Well, I'm sure something that happened over 2 years ago would have been fresher in my mind, yeah.
Okay, according to your written statement and according to, Your Honor, could I have the witness, show this to the witness?
You want to refresh his memory with his statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sure.
This isn't the statement. This is the actual statement you gave. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, specifically in your statement, did you say that I shot at the police first in your statement?
No,
In your statement, did you mention anything about me cutting off people's arms?
I was never asked about it. And I probably didn't remember or something at that time, I don't know. I just went through a hell of a situation.
Did you, in your statement, identify to the police in any way which direction the shooting was coming from?
No, I would say I basically what I did there was answer the questions that they asked me and whatever I could remember at that time.
I guess more specifically, would your statement have said that when you hit the floor, shooting had started and you couldn't tell what direction it was coming from?
The shooting started instantly.
After you hit the floor?
Pardon?
And that was after you hit the floor?
No. No, I heard him when that door opened. I distinctly heard him drop the gun and get on the floor. I remember them. That came from a police officer. I'm assuming an officer. All I remember coming through the door was a shield. And the shooting was instant.
Was the shooting before they yelled at police?
No, about the same time actually. As soon as that cop started, let's say, get on the floor and drop your gun, there was shooting. There was shooting by the time I got on the floor.
Did you witness the police fall down the stairs?
No,
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes, Your Honor. No, Mr. Peterson, you testified that you just went through a hell of a thing that day, correct?
correct.
It was a very stressful situation.
What's that?
It was a very stressful situation,
I would say so.
and you stand by your testimony here today when asked specifically by me who appeared to fire first, that it was the defendant that appeared to you to fire first.
That is my belief, yes.
And you testified that when you entered Eagle Nation and had contact with Michael Funk, he appeared very scared.
Very scared.
So you have no idea what was said by the defendant to Michael Funk prior to your entering Eagle Nation that morning, correct?
Not before I got there.
No further questions. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Flatoff, any follow-up questions?
Your Honor, I would request that defense be able to play the entire interview of Michael Peterson at the police station directly or immediately. The first interview he had made with the police to better, I guess, establish what he had told the police, the entirety of it all. I mean, it goes to the several prior inconsistent statements, but I guess more importantly that what his recollections were of the events right after this actually happened.
And how long is it?
I'm not sure, Your Honor. It may be a half hour. And
All right, so I'll allow you to play snippets of things in areas that you think he was inconsistent, but if,
Your Honor, if I may, just for the record, the state would object. The defendant's had an opportunity to impeach the witness with his prior statement, with the written statement that I provided to the defendant, and he's had the opportunity to impeach him. He's gotten his answers, so the state would object, because now the defendant has not articulated any specific impeachment purpose. He just wants to play this entire interview, which he cannot even state how long it is. And I believe that's an improper mode of admission.
all right, well, I mean, he is allowed to impeach if he has a different video testimony to show that there's some inconsistencies, but again, we're not gonna show the whole video. You gotta specify which parts that you want to impeach him with.
It looks like there's about 6 interviews on there.
All right, so we'll mark that disc.
I guess, Your Honor, we only need to play the interview. I think from what I recall, it's not that long. I think it gets directly to the points of what he's seen in there.
have the area that Mr. Slodgy needs a hew to?
I just recently, when I taken over the case about a month ago, actually a few weeks ago, got a computer to work to actually view the video. I haven't had time to document it minute by minute on what it has said like I've done the rest of the videos.
I mean, is it consistent with the written statement where,
No, Your Honor,
so it's something different than the written statement?
it's different than the witness statement, and it's definitely different than what he's saying on stand right now. I'm not saying you're lying or anything, I think your recollection.
Mr. Flatoff, you can't have a conversation with the witness.
And then fast forward. That's pretty much in their paper law, or a quarter inch mark below, it's like that. That's it right there.
I go home to my garage door. I think once we get that.
Do you recognize this interview room?
No, not to be truthful, yeah, I don't.
Do you recall this at all?
Well, I'm assuming that that was the interview right after I entered the police station.
Do you remember that investigator that?
No, I don't really remember.
Is that a clear picture of you?
It looks like,
Does that appear to be you?
yes.
Down here, I try to get the word back about the house because that opens an overhead garage door which faces the alley. Okay, and there's a bar back there, and I don't want somebody to take that down. Sure. Just blah, blah. Yeah, I'll try.
I'm sorry, for the record, this is 1:44, and we started in about 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll try it. Yeah, or definitely, sure, one way or another. Okay, so, let me just go to the, so, were you just a witness at home in this? Were you at Eagle Nation? I walked over, which I do, occasionally. I walked out of the back of my, that's why I had my garage door open. Sure. Because I hit that walk out the alley side, that faces that. Yeah. Okay, open up their door, close behind, and walked in. Okay. So, what time was that roughly this morning that you went over there? If you had to estimate? I would say probably 9-ish. Okay. 9-ish. So at 9 a.m., you left your house at the 209 Martin, you walked over there and then went inside. Across the alley, okay, through the back door. Okay. And into the back door. Okay, so who or what did you see when you got inside? Actually, what I saw was one guy working on a motorcycle. Do you know who it was? He was there with witness. I don't know his first name. Okay. And I see it like I waved to him and all that. Okay. See, so one guy working on the motorcycle. Yeah, and ML was sitting there. And who was? ML, and who's in that? ML was there. Yeah, that's all right. So ML was sitting where, and where did he sit? Is there a collar there? I'm not really familiar with the name. Yeah, there's a collar. And then you go back. This is back in the workshop area. Okay. So ML was sitting at the counter in the workshop area? Correct. Okay. You don't know his real name? No, let's just call him ML. No, I ever knew him by. Okay, he's a white guy? Yeah. Roughly how old? I'm profiling here. No, I just don't remember. No, I just wanted, we don't have a real name, I just want to make sure that we're all talking about the same person. Yeah, that's all. Okay, so how old is he, would you say? Around 60. Okay. Okay. So you got, okay, so one guy's working on a motorcycle, and I was at the counter. And then there was this other guy. Okay, there was another guy that was in there? Yeah. You don't know
In your honor, I just asked that it be paused, just so I guess for clarification of the record, maybe a standing objection, so we're gonna play the entire 45-minute interview, because I haven't heard anything inconsistent yet.
Right, Mr. Flatoff, if you're gonna confront him with, an inconsistent statement, you have to have an inconsistent statement to confront him with. So, we're not gonna listen to 45 minutes of,
No, I don't wanna listen to the whole 45 minutes, no, I'm just, it's building up to where, I guess, what he has seen, what he had, where I told him to get the hell out of there, I don't believe, that's not on the statement, but who shot first when the detective is asking him that, basically, he didn't see who was doing any shooting. I would say possibly, I don't know, but give it, I would guess 10 minutes maybe, and it would cover a lot of the inconsistencies.
should we fast forward to get to,
I don't think so, because it's really hard to tell. I mean, like I said, I don't have it specifically documented word for word, what's the second time.
all right, well, you know, we'll allow a little this, Mr. Flatoff in the future. I mean, this is not gonna happen again. We're gonna listen to an hour tape so that you can find, you know, one or two inconsistencies. If you're not ready and prepared to present that, then, you know, you're not gonna present it. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Sergeant.
Presume planning 14801.
Even though the time 98 or something, and, something about, leaving, and I noticed he had a gun. Okay, so you said you looked, see, you said, see, when you walked in there, you were saying that ML was real quiet. Yeah, I know this, that's funny. Well, what was the guy doing that was standing by him? He was just standing there. Just standing there, he wasn't saying nothing? No, no. Okay. About I walked in, he wasn't, okay. Okay, so that guy was standing there, and again, the best, and I know sometimes you should grab quickly, but the guy that was standing there, was he a white guy? Yeah, okay. He's a white male. What else can you tell me about him? Long hair, short hair? Long hair. Long hair? Remember at all, anything that he was wearing at all, or? It was an entire cloth, I know that, but I can't, I see him behind the car, I don't know, the blue jeans, okay. But you just remember kind of dark clothing, and he had long hair, so it was like, you know, I wish I didn't wanna pinpoint, I didn't pay that much attention, but you just kind of remember that it kind of sticks out long. Basically, I wasn't in there very long, and sure, there was the gun. Okay, the guy with the long hair? Yeah. Alright, and was it straight? Was his hair straight, or was it curly? This is more straight. Okay. But you can put a question mark behind some of this, because I'm telling you, I know, and that's the first time in 72 years I've experienced that. Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Alright, so, all of a sudden, I didn't make a whole lot of eye contact after, because a lot of times, you know, you watch this crap on TV, and all you know, and aggravate something, you have to go, you're staring at them either. So, you walk in, just so I have it correctly, you walk in, you see a guy working on a motorcycle, you see ML at the counter back there, and there's this third male that's in there who you've never seen before. I know who's the customer. White male. What you notice first is that ML is real quiet, he's not saying that. Really, not himself. Yeah, and, because normally he'd say something to you when you walk in, probably. Yeah. And then, so do you think this guy had this gun up the whole?
Pausing at 150, 49.
Go about even the halfway mark, that'll probably be more close to.
I could see the direct. Okay. What? And I could see, motorcycle, did he look right now, and did he look scared though to you too, or did he just look? Yeah, not as bad as that now, but he was shaking. Okay. And I wasn't part of the area, don't get me wrong. Right. Just that you really had nothing to do with any of it. Well, I didn't know what's going on. I knew somebody was there with a gun. Okay. And anytime somebody's got a... So he goes over, he takes some orange juice or something out, what do you drink? Right back by the car. So like just in a container, just like... Oh, yeah, he drinks it out of that gallon? Yeah. Okay. So what happens next? Well, I'll try to get this right for you, or for everybody. Then, okay, what happened then is the cop that went back there, that was never locked. And as far as I know, the doors were open. Sure, I can. Yeah. Okay, the back door open. So I ran the back door. Yeah, and the SWAT team was there. So the back door open. And one of those, I was doing SWAT. A cop, and that's just say a cop. So what did you see? Did you see more than one police officer? I could see maybe about two. The door is about that size. Okay. What were they saying? When that door flew open, I looked that way and I could see one cop and I think a second one with a shield. Okay. Protect them. Okay, so the one in front had a shield? And at the same time they were higher. Exactly the weapon. Get on the floor. Okay, so they're going to have your weapons and get on the floor? That's all I can get on the floor. That's all I was sticking in my head. They kind of over and over. And so, okay, when the door opened and he started yelling, there was shooting. And it happened so quick, I don't know. The shooting came from outside him first, or because it was all simultaneously. Okay, so right now he must have at some point pulled the gun out of his waistband? He must have went to the back door. Okay. Okay, so then, let me just make sure I'm okay. So next thing, what you see is that the door comes open, you see what you think are probably at least two police officers, the front one has like a shield, they're yelling, drop your weapon, get on the floor, and next thing you know, there's shots that are going both ways. There's shots going both ways. I think there was, yes, it sounded like, I'm hitting the floor now. Okay. And inside of the cement block building, you got a lot of echoing. Right. And it sounded to me that there were shells going both ways. Okay. How many shots do you think you heard? If you had to guess. And I know you exact, but I'm not sure when I was.
Flatoff, is that sufficient?
Yes, I think so, Your Honor.
All right.
Holding it 2:02 and 35 seconds.
All right, so your question?
Would you say that would be a more accurate statement, Mr. Peterson?
Oh, I would have to, what's in my mind is the shooting came from the inside first. But it was pretty well, it's the same, there was shooting going both ways.
No further questions, Your Honor.
I will still stick with that. The shooting started from inside first.
All right, thank you. Mr. Seaman?
How long, Mr. Peterson, would you say you've known Ryan Morrison?
Probably about the same amount of time as,
About 15 years or so?
I don't know. I never thought of it.
A number of years?
I've known him for a number of years now, and we become somewhat friends also.
And in fact, after this stressful incident, when you gave that statement to the police, you couldn't remember Ryan's name, could you?
Well, usually I call him Rhino rather than Ryan.
But at this time, when the officer was asking you about the mechanic who was working on the bike,
To be truthful with you, I couldn't understand a whole lot of what I was saying there.
we'll leave it at that.
I
Thank
hope
you.
I sound better today than I did on that. But I did go through one of the ordeal.
Mr. Flatoff, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, sir, you can sit down.
State release the witness from subpoena.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor, I'd just like to enter this in exhibit B into evidence.
Do we have it? Okay, we'll take that. All right, you're excused, and, Mr. Seaman, your next witness.
State call Ryan Morrison.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give in the matter now before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? You may be seated.
Please state your name, spell the last for the record.
Ryan Moderson, Moderson.
And how are you employed, Mr. Morrison?
I'm full-time truck mechanic at Master Fleet, and I work part-time at Eagle Nation.
And what do you do part-time at Eagle Nation?
I barter for repairs on my own motorcycle.
So you do mechanic type work as well? Now, have you ever met Brian Flatoff prior to December 5th, 2015?
No,
Do you have a son named Ethan?
yes,
And how long have you known or been familiar with or acquainted with Eagle Nation Cycles?
since 2007.
And does your son also do part-time jobs there
He did, until then,
up until December 5th?
right.
Now I'm going to take you back to December 5th, 2015. Do you recall that day?
Yep,
And did you go to Eagle Nation Cycles that morning?
yes.
Do you recall approximately what time?
8:15, 8:30, somewhere in there.
And what was your reason for going to Eagle Nation that morning?
Work on motorcycles and hang out with my friends and, drop off Michael's Christmas card.
When you say Michael, are you referring to Michael Funk?
Michael Funk, yep, ML.
Was ML there when you arrived at Eagle Nation that morning?
Yep.
Was anybody else present at that time?
I think Steve was in the basement, but I hadn't seen him yet.
And are you referring to the shop's owner, Steve Arado?
Correct.
So what happened after, once you arrived and you observed Michael Funk there? So what happened next?
We were just talking to each other like normal, and, he'll show me something funny on the computer, stuff like that, nothing out of the ordinary. Just kind of laughing at stuff and having a cup of coffee.
Did you give him his Christmas card?
Yep.
And so after, I guess you engaged in some small chat with Mr. Funk, what did you do next then?
Well, right about around there, we heard a truck pull up by the back door. So normally that wasn't very common unless we knew somebody was coming or dropping something off. So I went to work, and ML went to the back door, and I was just working away. So,
And would this be like the back alley door?
correct.
Now, besides the man door there, is there like another door, a service
There's
door?
an
there?
overhead garage door, yeah.
And so you were working on a motorcycle and you observed ML go towards the back door?
Yes.
And was that to check out then the sound of the vehicle that you
Yeah,
heard?
see who was there, and like I said, if they were dropping something off, or, you usually figure out what they're dropping off, and if we need a cart to bring it in, or whatever.
So what happened next?
I was working on a motorcycle, and I noticed he came through the door, and that's when I saw Mr. Flatoff come through the door with him, and ML kind of looked at me and kind of gave me a look of,
You can go ahead and say it.
yeah, like, we're fucked. So, and that's when I saw he had, Mr. Flatoff had a pistol in his waist, and I kind of walked to the end of the lift and kind of met up with ML and him as they were walking toward the desk.
Now, this was the first time you'd ever observed Brian Flatoff, correct?
Correct.
Do you see the person here in court today who entered that morning with the gun?
Yes.
And can you identify by where he is seated, what he is wearing?
Right now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, black shirt, glasses, sitting right there.
Two persons to my left.
Correct.
Your Honor, just ask the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
Good job.
So, Mr. Funk came in, was the defendant basically in front of him in relation to the alley?
Yes.
And he gave you that look, and what happened next?
I believe Mr. Flatoff kind of directed us into an area and then was kind of, you know, talking to ML.
Okay, and I'd ask to bring up State's Exhibit number 17. Now, can you identify what this still from the video exhibit is displayed up on the screen?
It's ML walking from the back door
And where is this taking place?
in the back shop of Eagle Nation.
And are we at 8:40, 8:44? And I ask that the exhibit be played from 8:40, 8:44 to 8:52:05. And stop it there, please. Can you identify who the individual is on the right, that, on the right as we're looking at the screen?
Yes, that's me.
And that was paused at 8:40, 8:47. Please continue playing. Pause it at 8:48:58. Now, at this point in time, could you tell where ML was going?
Yeah, that's when he was kind of walking in a circle there, we were saying, you know, are you expecting anybody? No. Are you expecting anybody? No. So, okay, I'll check it out, and I went back to work, and he was walking toward the back door.
Please continue playing at 8:48:58. Pause it. 8:49:54. Now, who's that male that came in with Michael Funk?
That's Brian Flatoff.
And can you tell, was there something that he's holding in his, looks like his left hand?
Yeah, it looks like a pistol.
Was that the firearm that you saw there? And was this about the time when ML gave you that look?
Right.
Continue playing 8:49:54. 850-06. Do you recall what, if anything, the defendant said when he approached your area right there?
No, I don't, honestly. I can't remember. Until I saw it, I don't remember him coming over there. But I don't know what he would have said.
What was it that you were working on right there?
A motorcycle.
All right. Are you aware of the history of that motorcycle?
I was at that time that customer, Vance Dalton, brought it to the shop for work. I knew he had bought it from Brian Flatoff, but as far as I knew, it was just getting fixed.
And at this time, you didn't realize this was Brian Flatoff?
I recognized him when he came through the door only because Vance had shown me a picture of him because he had been harassing him prior to that. And I just said, well, what's the guy look like? Oh, that's what he looks like, okay. So that's the only reason I kind of knew who he was, but I'd never met him.
Please continue playing 850-06. Oh, and pause it right here again, please. And that's Michael Funk with his hands up in the center of the screen.
Correct.
Continue playing 850-08. That's what I should have done. Pause it. 850-25. Now, is that you we see at the front of the screen on the phone?
Yes.
Do you recall who you were calling at that point?
I think that's, when he came over, I think maybe that's when he told me to call Vance Dalton and tell him to get down here, but I can't really remember, I guess.
Is that the first phone call you recall making then at this, after the defendant came in?
Yes.
Continue playing 850-25. And pause at 850-32. Now at the top of the screen, the person with his hands up going towards the door, is that Michael Funk?
Yes.
Could you overhear the defendant saying anything that caused Michael Funk to go to the door at that point?
I think he said close the door. I don't know exactly.
And at this point, you're still on the phone, correct?
Right.
Continue playing 850-32. Pause at 851-21. Were you able to hear anything that the defendant was saying, if anything, at this point in time to Michael Funk?
I think he was saying, like, I'm serious, this is really happening, and I believe ML said, yeah, we know you're serious, we're scared to death.
Continue playing 851-22. And stop 852-05. Now, do you know Vance Dalton?
Yes.
And how do you know Vance Dalton?
We worked at Master Fleet together for a short time, and we were friends.
Now, were you able to get through to Vance Dalton that morning when you were ordered to call him by the defendant?
Yes, after a few tries.
Did you feel that you had any choice but to call Vance Dalton at that time?
No, he told me to do it, and he's holding a gun, so I'm going to do it.
And it was after about 3 times you finally got through to him?
Correct.
And what did you say to Vance Dalton once he answered?
I believe he answered the phone, and he said, yeah, I'm on my way, and I told him, don't come down here, call the police. I said, Flatoff is here with a gun.
Now, did you leave your phone line open for Vance Dalton?
Yes.
Did the defendant make any statements about his gun? Did he tell you what he was armed with?
I believe he said, I got 75 rounds of ammo, and I'm here to get this done, or something. I can't exactly remember.
Did he have any other weapons on him besides the gun?
I only ever saw one other dagger. That was it. Or knife that he showed me.
Did he say anything when he showed you the knife or the dagger?
He said I believe he said he was going to use it to cut Vance's ears off or something like that.
Now, during this time, did the defendant have the gun out in his hand?
Yeah, pretty much the whole time.
Was he doing anything with the gun, as far as waving it around or pointing it at anyone?
Yeah, instead of pointing with his finger, I guess he would just point with the gun, ML over there at me, and
Now, at some point, while it was just, at this point now, it's just you three, you, ML, and the defendant in the upper shop area, correct?
correct.
Now, at some point during this time frame, did the defendant fire the weapon?
Yeah, he did fire a shot into the ceiling, and but that was it right then.
Did he state at all or say anything why he fired that round into the ceiling?
I believe he said, yes, I'm serious, and again, we said, yeah, we know you're serious.
And was he making any other demands other than for Vance Dalton to come to the shop?
No.
Play the exhibit video 73E at 8:53:50. Pause it. Paused 8:54:06. Can you tell us what we just saw there?
That's when he fired the shot into the ceiling, because it made me jump.
And continue playing at 8:54:06. Paused 8:54:33. Do you recall what the defendant was saying to you and ML at this point?
No, I don't.
Do you recall if he made any specific threats towards you?
I think he just, a lot of it was kind of random, and from what I can remember, I know he said a couple of times, this is a good day to die, and, I want Vance down here, I want Vance down here. That was pretty much a lot of it.
And continue playing 8:54:33. Pause at 8:56, 8:55, 59. Was the defendant speaking to somebody on the phone at this point?
I think so. I really don't remember, but I think he was, but I don't know who.
Continue playing 8:55, 59. Pause 8:56, 19. Now, at that point, were you directed to do something by the defendant?
Yeah, he told me to get that bike off the lift.
And why, at that point, do you believe he told you to get that bike off the lift?
Because well, I think somewhere in that, prior to this point here, he said that he wanted it off of the lift and get it into his truck, and, because he was taking it back.
Was it at around this point when he realized that was what he believed to be his motorcycle?
Right, roughly in there, yeah.
Because up until that point, he didn't realize that was his bike, is that fair to say? Or the bike he believed to be his?
Right,
So then, he ordered you to get it off the lift?
and start putting it back together, yeah.
And did you feel at that point that you had any choice but to do what he was ordering you to do?
No, I had to.
Continue playing 8:56, 19. Pause 8:56:50. Do you recall that, was there some type of exchange there between you and the defendant?
I think must have been on the phone with Vance, and, because he had asked, why isn't he here yet? And I remember telling Mr. Flatoff, well, he lives in Kaukauna, it's gonna take him a little while to get here. I said, here, do you wanna talk to him? And I think he told me no. And
Do you recall him making any statements regarding what he was gonna do to Vance, if anything, once he got there?
he said he was gonna kill him once he got there.
Now, while this was going on, did you have an opportunity to escape out the back door while you were working on the bike?
I did, but he said if I go out the door, or if ML goes out the door, he'll shoot whoever's not, if I run out the door, he's gonna kill ML. If ML runs out the door, he's gonna kill me.
Now, at some point, did somebody else, you know who old Mike is?
Correct, Mike Peterson?
Now, at some point, did he arrive?
Yes.
And approximately how much later, do you recall, after this, than he arrived?
10 or 15 minutes, maybe. I don't know, I wasn't really paying attention to the time, and
Understandable. Do you recall what happened, did you see Mike Peterson enter the back door?
I'd taken the motorcycle off the lift, and I was putting it together by the back door, and I saw Mike come in, and, he's, morning Rhino, how's it going? And that's kind of when I mumbled to him, get the fuck out of here, Mike, because I wasn't sure if he noticed he was there or not. And he just kind of looked at me funny. I don't think he heard me, and kept walking, and so I just kept putting the motorcycle together like I was told.
Now, what did you observe next after Mike Peterson then continued on into the shop?
I was putting that bike together, so I kind of looked back, and I think Mike was standing by the lunch counter, right outside of where the camera is there. I don't really know what they were saying back and forth, but that's where they were.
So, was it Mike Peterson, Mike Funk, and the defendant then were together in that area?
I think so, in that general area, yeah. And that, I know that Mike kind of had a hard time understanding what was going on.
And during this time, you were working on the bike, correct?
Right.
Play the exhibit 73F 9:15:20. Pause it. Now, at this point in time, can you describe who's at the top of the screen in the center?
That'd be me working on the motorcycle.
And this was the motorcycle that the defendant ordered you to get off the lift and put back together?
Correct.
Now, at some point, were you present when the police entered the shop?
Yes.
And what happened based on your observations when that entry was made?
A little while after where we are here, I kind of got as far as I could go putting it back together. And I told Mr. Flatoff that, and I said, well, can I go sit at the counter? He said, yeah, sure. I was sitting there smoking a cigarette, and I remember he was between me and ML.
Let's play exhibit 73F at 9:42:30. And can you describe then who that is, I guess on the left-hand side of the frame?
That's ML sitting behind his desk.
And you recall, well, play now 9:42:26. Pause it. 9:42:52. Now at this point, do you recall where you were?
Right, I was sitting at the lunch counter, and Mr. Flatoff was between us, just out of camera there, and I saw the door open and the shield come through, and I remember hearing police, and Mr. Flatoff started moving towards ML, and I turned and hit the floor and went behind the counter right away. I really didn't see anything after that.
So at this point in time, you're located basically at the bottom left-hand of the screen, just to the left?
Yep.
And continue playing at 9:42:55? 52, sorry. Pause. 9:43:05. Now, who are the individuals on the left-hand side of the screen?
That's Mr. Flatoff and ML.
And can you testify to what Mr. Flatoff was doing at this point?
He's firing the weapon in the direction of the police.
Were you able to tell at this point if any of the officers had fallen down the stairs? Could you see any of that?
No, I didn't see any of that. Like I said, as soon as they came through the door, I just wanted to get down and be like, hey, I'm not anybody with a gun or doing anything. Come and haul me out of here. And when the shots started, then I went around the corner of the lunch counter and I hid behind the counter.
And continue playing at 9:43:05. Pause 9:43:10. Can you describe what we had just witnessed now, what had occurred?
That's the fire extinguisher blowing up, and it caused that whole area to fill with the powder, and it shot kind of right down the hallway to where I was.
Continue playing 9:43:10. Pause at 9:46:08. Can you identify who that is on the screen now with his hands up?
That's ML.
And what, if anything, did the defendant say prior to, I guess after the police had left, did you hear the defendant make any statements or say anything?
Not really. I didn't know what had happened yet. I couldn't see anything, not because of the smoke or anything, but because of where I was. At that point, I wasn't sure if he was still alive or actually had anything happened. I kind of assumed that, okay, the cops must have shot him. He was the guy with the gun. And then, I think I heard him say, go close the door, but I can't really remember. But I didn't know at this point that ML was walking through the building. I didn't know he had gotten outside at all until I walked out the door sometime later.
Did you hear the defendant yell anything at ML at this point as he was heading towards the door?
Not sure if it was directed at him, like I said, but I heard him saying, close the door. I didn't know who he was yelling at. That's what I thought. I couldn't believe he was still talking. I didn't know. I was kind of waiting for the cops to come around the corner and say, okay, who are you? What are you doing here? So, but it never happened.
And continue playing from 9:46:08. Pause, 9:46:21. Now, around this time, did you hear the defendant firing the gun again?
I did inside the building, yes.
And after you heard this round of gunfire, did you hear another round of gunfire?
A little while later, then I heard some more outside the building.
And continue playing 9:46:21. And pause 9:46:30. So after you heard that round of shooting coming from outside of the building, what do you recall happening next?
I was just kind of sitting there like, should I get up? Is there anybody in here? I didn't heard him talking at all, and until then I heard him talking, and that's when he said, there's nobody else in here. But I heard Mike cough, and then I said, hey, I'm still in here. And Mike said the same thing, I'm still here. And he turned around and said, you two fuckers, get out of here. And I asked him if I could help him up off the floor. I did. And then he walked us to the back door, and then when I came out the door, I saw ML laid in the alley on my left.
Play exhibit 73G 10-01-20. Pause it, 10-01-24. And can you please identify who that is in the center of the screen?
That's Mike Peterson and myself.
And was it not until this point in time when you were finally free to leave?
Correct.
And continue playing at 10-01-24. Stop at 10:02:30. So, Mr. Morrison, what did you observe? What happened once you first stepped outside that back door to the alley?
I stepped outside, I saw a blue truck by the garage door. I saw ML laying on the ground, not moving. And then I looked to the right, and that's where all the cops were, and they all had all their guns pointed at me and Mike Peterson. And then they all started shouting me to do 10 different things from everybody. So And then they got me on the ground, put me in handcuffs, and put me in a squad car.
And just to be overly obvious, but it's necessary, did you give the defendant, Brian Flatoff, consent or permission to confine or restrain you in any way that day? Did you give Brian Flatoff consent or permission to confine or restrain you in any way that day inside Eagle Nation?
I don't understand how to answer that.
Did you give
If I would've said, hey, you gonna let me go, and he said no, I mean,
It's an obvious question, but necessary for an element. Did you give the defendant consent or permission to do any of this to you that day?
no.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, we're gonna take our morning recess at this time. Sir, you may step down, but we're not done. Mr. Flatoff gets to ask you some questions. All right, outside the presence of the jury, again, Mr. Flatoff, I just want to give you the warning that, I understand you're representing yourself, and that's challenging, but the rules of evidence still apply, and I wouldn't let an attorney do what you did with that video, that you play a whole video and try to just get the little snippets of it. So in the future, if you're trying to confront somebody with an inconsistent either statement or something inconsistent in the video, you have to go right to that point and confront them with it. You can't play, half an hour just to get to 1 or 2 minutes of that. Do you understand that?
That's right.
All right. Mr. Seaman, anything further?
State would move Exhibit 17 in evidence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Flatoff, anything further?
Not this time, no, Your Honor.
Okay, again, get them down and back as quick as possible so we can keep moving along. All right, Mr. Flatoff.
Picking up from where you left off with the district attorney's questioning, when you left that building and the officers took you into custody or told you the 100 different things you're supposed to do, did you see the officers directly to your right when you walked out that building?
Not like directly right there, but down the alley, maybe 25 feet, maybe.
Could they see Michael Funk from your position?
Yes.
After you were taken into custody, or while you were being taken into custody, did any of the officers ask you who is that laying in the alley?
No. I was asking if ML was okay and what happened, and they didn't really answer me.
Did you identify ML or Michael Funk to the officers immediately after you were placed in the squad car?
I really can't remember. I can't remember if they had asked me who that was or not.
Oh, was it Officer Heating, Marlon Heating, that squad car you were put into?
I didn't ever get his name either.
Do you remember telling Officer Heating at 10:06 that you saw Michael Funk laying in the alley, in the dirt?
Yes.
That's him laying on the ground. Is he okay?
Yeah, because I kept asking and nobody really answered me.
What did he do after you identified Michael Funk?
What did that officer do?
Yes.
I don't remember.
Did he tell you that someone's checking him out?
I don't remember.
Okay, we're gonna go back. I guess we're gonna have to rewind now. I just wanted to get that question in. Did you ever see the letter that Vance Dalton wrote to the judge in regards to trying to get my bond revoked?
Not until, I think, the day after when the judge answered him.
And you had testified that I had sold Vance my motorcycle?
Yes, that's what I was told by Vance.
So Vance, so you weren't there you didn't actually hear the sale or the
No.
deal? That's what Vance Dalton told you?
Yeah, that's what he told me, yeah.
In Vance Dalton's letter to the judge, where he's trying to revoke my bond, he expresses concern, Vance Dalton tell you that he bought my bike for $4,500,
Correct,
and that he used $3,000 of that 45 to bail me out of jail,
correct,
and he gave me $1,500 after that?
correct.
In his letter to the judge, Vance Dalton writes that after trying to get my bond reduced, he writes, "I worry about losing the money."
I guess at this point, Your Honor, I'm gonna object as to the relevance as well as hearsay.
Mr. Flatoff?
Oh, Your Honor, he had said he had read this letter, and I just wanted to know his opinion of that statement.
Okay, I'm gonna sustain the objection. His opinion on that statement's not relevant to the trial. You've already addressed this issue with Mr. Dalton, so I'm gonna ask that you move on.
How did my motorcycle get to your shop?
Vance brought it down there for repairs.
Did he drive it down there?
I don't think so, because upon inspection, he found that there was a hole in the drive belt, and he said it wasn't safe to ride. I can't remember really how it got there.
Was the rear jug on the bike completely seized up?
At that time, no, I don't think so.
Did Vance Dalton put $2,000 in parts in that bike?
Objection, relevance?
Mr. Flatoff?
Your Honor, I'm trying to establish, I guess, what was done with the bike once it arrived there.
All right, I'm gonna sustain the objection. What was done with the bike when it was arrived there is not relevant to this trial.
On the morning of December 5th, 2015, did you know I was coming to that shop?
No,
You had testified that you heard a truck pulling up to the door?
correct.
How did you know that it was a truck pulling up to the door and not a car pulling up to the
Well,
door?
I don't know, a vehicle, I'm sorry, I should have put vehicle in the statement. I didn't know it was a truck or a car, just heard that something was pulling up to the door.
Would there be any reason that you would be hiding my motorcycle parts prior to me showing up to that garage?
No, I wasn't hiding them anywhere.
Were you moving my motorcycle parts to a back room just prior to me showing up?
Yes. That's our paint room, that's where we take the parts to get painted. We do the sanding in there to keep the dust out of the main shop.
And repairing a drive belt, does that require removing the gas tank and painting the motorcycle and stripping parts off of it?
Objection as to relevance?
Oh, it's,
I'm just trying to establish, Your Honor, that the bike wasn't, I don't know, what was done to the bike, for the reasons they're stating it's done to the bike.
okay, and how is that relevant to the charges as they apply to you?
To establish if the bike was, what they were doing with the bike, Your Honor, it's.
Okay, I'm gonna sustain the objection, finding it's not relevant.
Have you ever seen, I'm gonna just go on the list, have you ever seen, this, shop video there at Eagle Nation Cycle, on playback, for example? On the computer there?
When?
Anytime, for example, does it record in color or black and gray?
Black and gray,
The video at the shop records in black and gray?
correct.
Is there a reason why half the video would be in black and gray and half the video would be in color?
I don't know.
Well, have you ever stolen a motorcycle for the shop, the gang, or
Objection,
yourself?
Your Honor, we don't even need to finish this question, it's irrelevant, improper character, speculation, no foundation. And, Your Honor, this witness is a crime victim, and the law requires that he be afforded certain respects, whether the defendant's an attorney or not. There's a proper way to question, and just to throw things out there like this goes contrary to that law as well.
Right, so I'm gonna sustain the objection, Mr. Flatoff. That'd be other acts, evidence that would need to be approved by the court before being presented to this jury.
Did Michael Funk have his gun on him that day?
I don't know.
Are you a member of the outlaw motorcycle gang referred to as by law enforcement as the Hells Lovers Motorcycle Club?
Objection, relevance, and proper character.
Existing.
Did you see all of the Department of Justice released video to the public? On the internet?
Some of the stuff that was on YouTube, yeah.
In the garage, did you ever hear me screaming, there's a 5-minute countdown or I'm gonna start killing you guys?
Not screaming, but you said it.
5 minutes, I'm gonna start killing you guys?
Yes,
Did you hear a 1-minute countdown or I'm gonna start killing you guys?
yes.
Did you ever hear me screaming that I'm gonna kill Dalton and his wife and kids?
Not his wife and kids, no. And you weren't screaming.
When I'm saying these 5-minute or 1-minute countdowns that you testified to, was I on the phone or were you on the phone at the time, or was I on the phone?
I don't remember if you were on the phone, no.
You had testified you had heard shooting outside the building. And is that consistent with your statement that, to police, when they asked you if you heard shooting?
Yes,
In your statement to police, did you tell them that when the police came through the door, you immediately got down behind the counter?
yes,
Did you tell them I didn't know where the shooting was coming from?
yes.
If you didn't know where the shooting was coming from, how would you know it was coming from outside the building?
Because I can tell when it's inside the building, or when it's outside, it's a different sound.
You had said, you had testified that you were friends with Vance. Does that mean that you're no longer friends with Vance?
Correct.
Is there a reason why?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Does that have anything to do with this case?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Did I tell you I was going to hurt you?
You said, well, just other than that, if I run out the door, you're gonna shoot ML, and if ML runs out the door, you're gonna shoot me.
Did you ever hear me say that, I'm not going to hurt you?
Not that I remember.
Did you recall me saying, that I wished I'd have brought my medications
No,
to give you a pill to calm down?
maybe something like that. I think I told you that, no, I wouldn't take it, or,
Do you ever recall me saying that this has nothing to do with views? I'm not here to hurt you.
no, I don't.
Your Honor, I would like to introduce into evidence a CD. It's a conversation that's picked up on something that I'm actually talking to Michael Funk and Morrison at the time about exactly what I'm asking right now.
Well, I would object, Your Honor, because the defendant's trying to introduce a statement of himself, not impeach the witness with regarding anything that he heard, so he can't introduce his statements this way.
So this is audio of your statements?
It's an audio of them asking me, you ain't gonna hurt us, are you? I mean, I say, God, no, I'm here to pick this up. This is between Vance and I.
So, where's the audio from, the telephone call, or?
I'm assuming it's in the state's evidence, Your Honor. I'm assuming it's picked up through, on the phone, somebody on the phone.
But do you have information that this witness heard that?
They were standing there next to each other.
All right, so I'm not gonna allow it. So your question to this witness was, did he hear it? His answer is no. And by presenting that evidence, you're talking about a different conversation, and, it wouldn't impeach his testimony, because you said you're part of this conversation, so I'm gonna sustain the objection.
Do you know who Samantha Ames is?
No.
Were you there when they got my motorcycle out of impound?
No.
Did you ever hear my motorcycle run before they worked on it? You or Vance worked on it?
Yes.
So a motorcycle with a blown motor run?
Objection, relevance?
What's the relevance, Mr. Flatoff?
Your Honor, he's a mechanic, and the relevance is that Vance Dalton said the motorcycle just froze up. Like,
Alright, so I'll allow the question.
I heard it run at our shop, but we never did any engine work to it. So whether it was broke or it ran before it got there, I wouldn't know.
do you know what day it got there?
No.
But again, if a motorcycle's motor was locked up tight, would it run?
Not unless it had been repaired.
Did you tell Officer Keating, while you were in the back of the squad car, that the title to my bike was at your house?
No.
I'd like to play a video from Squad 7, Officer Keating's squad. It is inconsistent with this statement. According to this video, okay, I'll ask the witness. On the squad car video, you were explaining the motorcycle to Neil, to Officer Keating, and Officer Keating said to you, did you recall this statement? That Vance got his motorcycle, so Vance retitled the motorcycle because he had to take a loan on it. So Vance had the title, the officer said to you, everything, and you had replied, yeah, I do myself at my house. Do you recall that?
No, I can't remember. I can't remember that.
I'd like to play about, I guess that would take, I don't know if it takes 5 seconds or 10 seconds of video from Squad 7, Officer Keating.
Your Honor, the state would object regardless. This whole line of questioning is irrelevant to this case.
I'm gonna sustain the objection and ask that you move on, Mr. Flatoff.
Did you ever question, well, you had it put in your statement and also on squad video that I was calling and threatening Vance over my motorcycle.
Yes, I believe I said that.
Did you ever, I guess, or how do you reconcile me selling my motorcycle with me calling hundreds of times?
Objection, irrelevant, culture speculation.
I'll allow the question.
Can you repeat it, please?
How do you reconcile me selling my motorcycle with me calling Vance hundreds of times, like threatening to kill him? I mean, did you ever question that story? That if I sold my motorcycle, why would I be calling and threatening to kill him and his wife and family, as he told you? Did you ever question Vance's story? I guess that.
No.
Do you recall the exact day I got out of jail?
No.
Would you have known them things back then, possibly 2.5 years ago?
No.
To the best of your knowledge, have I ever been at Eagle Nation?
Objection, relevance.
Relevance?
I guess I'm establishing how I knew to get there. They said I went to walk, part of the statement says I
I'll allow it. Go ahead. Do you know, has he ever been there before?
Before that day, I wouldn't know, but I haven't seen you there, no.
Were you aware of anybody other than Vance Dalton in that garage that knew him?
Objection, relevance calls for speculation as to if anybody knew him.
Sustained.
Do you know how many video feeds or video cameras are at Eagle Nation Cycle?
No.
Did you ever recall telling Officer Heating that I used heroin?
No.
Was your phone collected as evidence in this case?
Yes.
When was it returned to you?
I think 30 days later.
Do you know if law enforcement downloaded the contents, text messages or anything that in regards to your phone?
I don't know.
When you, did you regularly text or message Vance Dalton, ML? I mean, when you guys talk to each other, did you send text messages on your phone?
Occasionally.
How long have you been coming around with Eagle Nation? How long have you known people down there?
Since 2007.
Were you aware of any law enforcement issues?
Objection, relevance. Vague.
Right, law enforcement issues with what, whom?
I guess dating to the 2012.
Objection sustained.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Seaman?
No, Your Honor, nothing further.
All right, Mr. Seaman, thank you. You may step down.
And release the witness from subpoena, Your Honor.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
All right, sir, you're released.
Yes, sir. Thank you. State calls Special Agent Eric Viney. Please state your name, spell the last for the record.
Eric, last name is Biney, B-E-I-N-E.
And how are you employed, Mr. Viney?
The Wisconsin Department of Justice, Division of Criminal Investigation.
And are you a special agent with the Department of Criminal Investigation?
Yes, sir.
And how long have you been employed in that capacity?
Approximately 4 years.
And prior to that, were you in law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
And for approximately how many years?
I've been in law enforcement a total of approximately 14 years.
And what's your current assignment or position with the Department of Criminal Investigation?
We have specialty focus areas. I'm assigned to the Arson Bureau.
And were you employed with the Department of Criminal Investigation back on December 5th, 2015?
Yes, sir.
And on that day, were you on duty that day?
Yes, I was.
And were you directed to the city of Neenah on December 5th, 2015?
Yes, sir.
And what was the nature, I guess, of that dispatch or direction?
We were assigned to assist in an investigation involving an officer-involved shooting incident at Eagle Nation Cycles in Neenah.
And over the period from December 5th, 2015 through December 7th, 2015, were you directed to essentially process the crime scene?
Yes.
Agent Biney, I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 22. Did you write a report at the conclusion of your investigation?
Yes, sir.
And can you identify what Exhibit number 22 is?
Exhibit number 22 is a satellite view. I believe it was obtained from Google Earth or Google Street View with notations that I have added to the satellite image.
We'll see how well this works. I'm handing you a laser pointer. Can you see from your location about the exhibit on the screen, what's on the screen, is that accurately reflect exhibit number 22 that I handed you?
Yes.
And can you point out on the photograph where illumination cycles is depicted there?
Oh, that's right there.
And now this overhead photo, this was part of your report, correct?
Yes.
And can you identify where Vicky's beauty shop is? And can you identify the area of Gore's Pub? Now, during the course of your analysis of the scene, did you locate a silver or stainless steel .45 caliber Kimber firearm pistol?
Yes.
And can you point on the diagram here, on the photo here, approximately where it was that you located it?
Approximately right there in the alleyway.
And that was on the alleyway behind Eagle Nation?
Yes.
And was part of your role, well, Agent by name showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 24. Is that what's depicted up on the screen?
It is.
And can you identify what that is a photograph of?
That is the photograph of the weapon that you just discussed. It is a Kimber 1911 Pro Carry 2 and 45 caliber ACP.
And is that a photograph of the firearm that you recovered in the alleyway outside Eagle Nation's back door?
Yes, sir.
And I'm showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 25. And is that's what's depicted up on the screen?
Yes, sir.
And can you identify what that's a photograph of?
Again, it's the Kimber 1911 Pro Carry 2 45 ACP.
And I'm showing you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 23. Can you identify what that is a diagram of?
This was a diagram that was created by the State Patrol, who was requested to come in and assist us. It is the ground view, essential overview of the ground floor of Eagle Nation Cycles, 360 Custom Skate Shop, and the Eternal Flame Tattoo and Piercing Shop, all in the same building.
And with the laser pointer, can you identify on that diagram where the rear door is leading out from the back of Eagle Nation Cycles into the alleyway? And that is that a motorcycle that appears to be white, depicted roughly in the lower center of the shop area?
Do you refer to that one?
Yes, sir.
That is.
Can you identify why that motorcycle is marked or is relevant?
That specific motorcycle was centrally located in that shop area, and unlike the other motorcycles that had a significant amount of mechanical damage, significant with a blunt object, it was also had liquid around it, with a gasoline container next to it. There was a strong odor of gasoline, and was believed to have a gasoline poured on it.
So now directing you back to the rear man door leading out to the alley. I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 27. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
Yes, this is a medium view of that rear entrance. It's on the exterior, and it is focusing on 3 spent .223 casings that were located just outside the entrance there.
And the rear door appears to be open in the photograph, is that correct?
Yes.
And can you describe what that area is immediately upon entrance of the door to the right?
That entryway is where I just pointed earlier with the laser pointer, is the entrance into the southwest corner of the shop area.
No, there appears to be like an open area in the floor there immediately upon entering the doorway, is that correct? Right there?
That is a stairwell that leads to the basement.
So is that line up almost, I guess, the opening of the staircase? Would that be fair to say it's almost right in line with the opening of the door?
As you would enter the main door here, there is essentially a top landing there, but immediately to the right of that begins the stairwell.
And now I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 28. Can you identify, first is Exhibit 28, what's depicted up on the screen?
Yes, sir.
And can you identify what Exhibit 28 is a photograph of?
Exhibit 28 is the same location, just facing north into the shop area. Again, that's the top landing. You can see the stairwell going to the right in this image. And then if you would continue straight or north, that leads to the main shop area.
And can you identify what is marked by photo placard number 31?
31 was a dagger that was located at some kind of dagger or knife that was located at that top landing.
And what about number 32?
32 is a Masterpiece 9mm pistol with 2 associated magazines next to it.
Now I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 29. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
That is the same weapon that was identified as placard number 32 in the previous photo. It is the Masterpiece Arms 9mm pistol, sometimes referred to by some as a MAC-10, with the 2 magazines that were also associated with it.
Now I'm showing you what's been marked previously as State's Exhibit number 3. Can you identify what that is?
That is the same weapon that's depicted in the photograph.
And this is the weapon that was recovered from the scene?
Yes.
Now, there's 2 magazines collected with that firearm, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what was the capacity of those magazines?
I accessed the magazines and loaded them. Each magazine would hold 33 rounds, so both magazines together would total 66 for the weapon.
And of the 2 magazines, were there still unspent cartridges, bullets inside each magazine?
Correct. One magazine had 19 unfired casings or rounds in it, and the other one had 20, so there was 19 in one and 20 in another.
And I'm showing you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 30. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
This is standing at that top landing, looking to the east down that stairwell, just inside the door to the alleyway there.
And can you identify what's at placard number 33 in that exhibit?
33 is a knife or dagger approximately halfway down the stairwell that's on one of the stair treads.
So that would be a second dagger that was located at that scene?
Correct.
Now I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 31. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
So to the north of that stairwell is a half wall. So we're on the north side of that half wall. And there's a few items that were in the shop along that north half wall. And then at the base of the half wall was, you can see evidence marker 29, which is a Glock 22 40 caliber pistol.
And I'm showing you State's Exhibit number 32. And is that what's depicted up on the screen?
Correct, it's an overhead view of that Glock 22 40 caliber pistol with a weapon home blade.
Now I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 33. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
This photo is essentially facing east in that main shop area. Photo was taken kind of in relation to where that half wall was. And it's a photograph of the motorcycle that was centrally located that obviously depicted the mechanical damage with the red gasoline can located to the east of the motorcycle.
And does that appear to be, was it a damp area on the floor by the front tire there as depicted in the photograph?
Again, there was a strong odor of gasoline, and then there was a puddle of what was believed to be gasoline located on and around the motorcycle.
And I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 34. Bless you. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
This is the passenger side saddlebag of that motorcycle with mechanical damage to the top of it.
And that's what's depicted up on the screen.
Yes, sir.
Now, you testified earlier that it appeared to be like blunt force damage on the motorcycle, is that not correct?
Correct.
And is this photograph depict what you previously testified about?
Yes, sir.
I'm showing you now what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 35. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
This would be the trunk bag that's mounted behind the seat of the motorcycle. Again, it has mechanical damage to it, likely from a blunt force strike.
And that's the photograph that's depicted up on the screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you observe other signs of damage or blunt force damage to the motorcycle besides the gasoline and the physical injuries still on the bike, but around the area of the motorcycle?
Well, there was damage to the gasoline tank and to the fairing. And, is that your question?
Was there like pieces of plastic or anything like that? It appears of anything broken
Yes, there was
off?
debris on the floor.
Was there any type of instrument located next to the motorcycle that appeared, based on your observations, consistent with, as utilized to cause this damage?
In the northeast corner of the shop, next to one of the desks, was a metal pipe that was located.
Now I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 36. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
There's two desks that are located in this main shop area. This is the south desk, which we refer to as the L-shaped desk. And this is in the northeast corner of that shop area, and the camera's directed towards that rear entrance to the alleyway. So in the top of the image would be the entrance door.
Now, there's something hanging on the side of the desk, correct?
Yes, on the north edge of the desk, there's a fire extinguisher.
And can you point that out with the laser printer, please? And did there appear to be damage to that fire extinguisher?
There was an impact location from a projectile on the north face of that fire extinguisher, and then what was believed to be a projectile located on the back side of that fire extinguisher that was lodged in the exterior metal.
Was there other damage that you observed to any type of items on or around that desk?
Yes, sir.
And what type of damage did you see to items on or around the desk?
There was impact locations in the computer monitors. There is a couple impact locations in the printer and paper, and then also right here in the desk, there was projectiles recovered from in the desk right here and within one of the monitors.
Now, did you locate any spent shell casings in the area of that L-shaped desk?
Yes,
And what caliber shell casings did you locate?
9mm.
Was any other caliber shell casing located in that area? Spent shell casings in the area of that L-shaped desk?
No.
Do you recall how many 9mm spent shell casings you recovered from the interior of Eagle Nation's course of our investigation?
Just spent shell casings?
Just the spent ones.
Spent shell casings, there was 25 9mm casings that were recovered.
Did you recover any unspent shell casings from the scene other than the ones that were loaded inside the magazines?
There was 2 unfired 9mm rounds that were located at the scene. One was located just north of this L-shaped desk on the floor, and a second was located in the alley behind that entrance that we had discussed earlier.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm a lawyer and I'm notoriously horrible at math, but you recovered then total of loaded shells from the magazine, spent shells, 9mm, from the scene, and the 2 loaded ones, that comes to a total of 68 shells, correct?
There was a total of 66 rounds that were recovered, 25 of which were fired, 20 in one magazine, 19 in another, and 2 that were not, that were found in the scene that were not fired. So there's a total of 66 rounds.
And if the defendant had entered Eagle Nations with that 9mm Mag-10 pistol with both magazines fully loaded, that would have been 66 rounds max capacity, correct?
The magazines and the weapon could hold a maximum of 66 rounds.
And that's a total of the number of projectiles fired or unfired that you recovered from the scene?
Of 9mm, yes.
Now I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 37. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
This is an overview photo of the southwest corner, specifically the south wall, where the entrance to the alleyway is.
And that's the rear exit door, correct, leading out to the alley?
Yes, sir.
And there's a number of placards, numbered placards up on the wall. Can you identify what those are marking?
Do you want me to point them out?
Yes, please.
There's one here, one there, one there, and another one there. There's 5 total rounds in the south wall specifically that are impact locations in that south wall from a projectile.
And I'm showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 38. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
That's a medium view photograph of 2 of the impact locations, one with a trajectory rod in one of the holes.
And that's what's depicted up on the screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, is that a trajectory rod that is in placard number, the impact hole in the wall and marked by placard number 3?
Yes.
And were you able to determine, based off use of that trajectory rod, the approximate location of the projectile, its source from impacting the wall?
I am not an expert in trajectory analysis. The crime lab assisted us with the trajectory rod placement, but based on the general direction, it was consistent with rounds being fired from the northeast corner of the shop area.
Is that the area where the L-shaped desk was located?
Yes, sir.
And we're showing you what's marked as exhibit number 39. Can you identify what that's a photograph of?
That is the interior face of the door for that alleyway entrance. This is showing the door in a closed position with a trajectory rod through that. So there is an impact on the exterior face if the door was open. This is showing the interior face of that door and the subsequent impact location into the wall behind that.
And do all these photograph exhibits appear to be truthful and accurate, or accurately depict your observations from the scene on that date?
Yes, the only thing I would add is in relation to this photograph was there was a second impact location on the west wall that wasn't depicted here. So there was, between the 2 walls, there's 7 impact or defects in those walls.
Thank you, Special Agent. No further questions.
Mr. Flatoff.
your assignment with this crime scene?
That was part of my role.
Was it, then with all this you're documenting, was part of your role to collect all the evidence?
That was done jointly between myself, the other participating investigators, and the crime lab.
Was the Neenah Police Department part of the other investigators that collected evidence?
The Neenah Police Department, there was one investigator that was requested to come in and assist with the recovery of some digital evidence in order, because of his experience with the digital evidence. So that person was requested to do that to ensure data wouldn't have been lost.
Are you aware of the crime log that was there, that was made that day? For the crime scene, the crime log?
The crime scene log, are you referring to when people sign in and out?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you know the name of the officer that you're referring to, as was part of collecting evidence there, the Neenah Police Department officer?
Investigator Adam Strabel was the person that I was just referring to, but an agent was with him when that was collected.
Who was that agent?
The DVR system, I was with him when that was collected, and the unmarked squad vehicle, Special Agent Heimel was with.
Was Neenah Police Department officer Jeremy Bowman with him?
I don't know who that is.
Who told you, was there a reason why you couldn't, did you collect the shell casings from the crime scene?
Again, that was done jointly between myself, the other two investigators, and the crime lab.
Was there a reason why you didn't collect the shop DVR system, the surveillance system?
The digital forensics was not my expertise, and we wanted to make sure that any data on there was preserved and not overwritten. So I know Investigator Strabel to have experience with the digital side of things, the digital forensics. So.
Were there any 223 shell casings found in the basement?
One.
Was that shell casing sent to the crime lab?
I do not know what was sent to the crime lab.
How many shell casings were on the east end of the alley in the positions that the officers were at that fired on Michael Funk? How many shell casings did you recover from that area?
At the east end of the alleyway,
Yes.
there was 19 at that location.
How many shell casings were at the west end of the alley? In 223 or any other caliber?
There was one unfired 223. I believe it was southwest of the Bearcat, but there was no fired or spent 223 casings on the west end of the alley.
Were there any 40 caliber shell casings recovered from the scene?
No.
Did you review any evidence prior to coming here today?
Yes.
What did that consist of?
The Masterpiece Arms 9mm.
Did you review any of your reports prior to coming here today?
Yes.
What did them consist of? Basically what you're testifying about, the numbers?
Correct.
What time did you get to Eagle Nation on that day?
I believe we arrived at 3:10 p.m. If you're referring to December 5th.
Yes. Were you waiting for the search warrants to arrive there before you entered the crime scene?
The interior was not accessed until the search warrant was obtained.
And that would have been at 6:30?
I don't recall what time it was approved.
Do you recall that when the Neenah Police Department came through for allegedly doing walkthroughs at
Prepared, yeah?
I don't know who was signing in and out of officers.
I guess you can show it to him and see if he recognizes it.
Honestly, I do not recognize this document. I recognize that there is some information consistent with a crime scene log, but there's a lot of notations that I don't recognize.
Well, not the notations I did, I guess what I'm referring to, that document for are the officers' names and the sign-in times.
I guess I don't feel comfortable testifying to stuff where the notations were added.
That's all, I don't have any questions about that. I guess the bullet holes that were in that south wall, how high off the ground were they?
You're talking the 5 impact locations in the south wall?
Yes.
I don't recall the measurements. They were at various heights and distances.
Okay, you testified that Neenah Police Department Adams Struggle collected the shot DVR system, correct?
In conjunction with an agent.
Did he also collect the other surveillance system in the front of the building?
I don't know that.
You don't recall who the other agent was with him either?
For the other surveillance system, I do not.
Did you understand that, did someone give the Neenah Police Department Adams Struggle permission to collect?
I don't know who gave him permission.
Did you understand this to be an officer-involved shooting investigation?
Yes.
And as so that it was, there was a framework, I guess, under law, of how this investigation was supposed to be conducted?
I don't understand your question.
Was an outside agency supposed to be doing this investigation? Outside other than Neenah Police Department?
I guess, Your Honor, I object as to relevance. It's also, now we're getting into, I guess, legal statutory interpretation, which would be outside the scope for this witness.
I'll sustain the objection.
You testified that Neenah Police Department Officer Struggle also collected Squad Car 1 video?
I don't know which squad is Squad Car 1. He collected video from the unmarked that was parked on the west end of the alley.
Did he collect any video from the Bearcat that was there?
I don't know that.
Did he collect any video from the Neenah Police Department Rescue Cayman?
I don't know that.
Did he collect any video from Squad Car 7? There would have been a squad car at the intersection, I don't know if it's Dottie and Martin Street?
I don't know what you're referring to, and I don't know the location you're referring to.
Did you happen to have a radio on you that day in contact with dispatch of Neenah Police Department or anybody?
No.
Yeah, I have no further questions.
Mr. Seaman?
The Department of Criminal Investigation, is that outside independent law enforcement agency separate from the Neenah Police Department?
Yes, sir.
And is it your department that's commonly called to investigate officer-involved shootings around the state of Wisconsin?
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Anything further, Mr. Flatoff?
Did you have any prior involvement, to your knowledge, the Department of Justice Criminal Investigation in the 2012 incident with Eagle Nation Cycle that led to the $53 million lawsuit?
Objection to relevance outside the scope of redirect.
Sustain.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Please step down. Okay, well, can I get those exhibits?
Your Honor, state would move exhibits number 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 8, 29, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39 into evidence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Seaman from the food.
It's almost lunchtime.
All right. We'll do it, we'll break for lunch, the food is here, good time.
All right.
All right, outside the presence of the jury, Mr. Seaman,
Your Honor, state would move to release Agent Viney from subpoena.
any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you'll be released. Anything further, Mr. Seaman?
No, sir.
Mr. Flatoff?
No, sir.
All right, let's reconvene at 12:40.